Alright, so here we are for another episode of RC Pit Stop, and today we're going to be working on the ARRMA Kraton V2. Now this is the latest version of the Kraton. It has the rebranded Hobbywing electrics, and of course if you've been following the channel, you've probably seen some of my bash videos with it. I did a run on 4S and I did another one on 6S, and I beat up on this truck pretty hard. I've also ran it a couple of times off camera since then, just having a bit more fun with the truck. And one of the things that I've noticed on this truck is that I'm having a little bit of damage here done to my body, and I'll bring this up close to the camera. You'll see here, now these new bodies from ARRMA for the Kraton, they actually have these oval holes cut out, and this is to allow the body post to kind of slide backwards and forwards as the chassis flexes a little bit. But as you can see, I'm still having a little bit of damage on the body here, right at the rear of these cutouts. And the rear body posts, as you can see, well rather the holes, have also been causing some damage here. So you can see just there, they're actually starting to tear up the body. Now, you can try and reinforce the body. That's not a problem at all. You can definitely do that and make things a little bit better, but that doesn't really solve the problem, which is of course that the chassis is actually flexing. So the Kraton does come with these plastic braces on the rear and front of the truck, and they do a fairly decent job. But if you jump as big as I do, and if you take some falls and the car kind of cartwheels and you really beat up on it, the chassis is always going to find a way to kind of give a little bit and give you a bit of flex. Now there are several different ways that you can do this by reinforcing the chassis. I've seen people run braces from shock tower to shock tower like they used to do with the old MT4 G3. But today I've actually come across some aluminium chassis braces from GKA. Now these came all the way from Strathmore, Alberta, and I'll have the contact details for this person. If you want to get these braces for yourself, I'll have the contact details in the video description. So please make sure you check out the video description because there'll be information in there so you can get your own. Now these are 70-75 aluminium. These are really strong, and as you can see, very nicely finished, all CNC machined. Now there is one more thing that I'm going to be swapping out on the Kraton, because GKA also makes these really nice aluminium servo mounts. Now this is all CNC machined out of a block of aluminium, and as you can see, it's all one piece, and it's really well detailed and well finished. They are exactly the same dimensions as the stock servo mount, and one of the reasons why I'm going to be swapping it over, as you can see here, that's the servo mount in here. The servo mount's actually plastic. Now with the stock setup, probably not a huge necessity. However, when you start upgrading your truck and you start to put big heavy Proline tires on it, or you put a really nice big torquey servo in there, all of that pressure needs to sort of release somewhere, and the servo mount unfortunately is the first thing to go. Not just that, even if you do keep it all stock, due to fatigue as you use the truck, eventually the plastic on the servo mount will start to give, and you'll start to have a bit of flex, and your steering becomes a little bit sloppy and or rather less precise. You don't have that connectivity between remote and car as you used to have initially, because obviously you're losing some of the steering through the actual flex of the servo mount. So I'm going to be swapping this out. Hopefully this will improve the truck quite significantly, which I think it will, and I know it will because I've been on the ARRMA Facebook page, which again I'll have links in the description for that, and I've seen testimonies from a few other people that have had these braces and these servo mounts, and they swear by them. They say that they're really good, and the product stands up to the test of time and to the punishment that they put their trucks through, and yeah, you shouldn't have any issues after that. Now these are of course for the Talion and the Kraton. You can get them as well for the Typhon and the Senton, and of course the servo mount is the same throughout all four RCs, so that's not a problem there. Anyway, enough talking. I'm going to get to work. I'm going to be replacing these, and then I'll come back and show you the finished product, and then I'll be able to take it out again and give it another run. Okay, so there we go. We are done. Now this was a very quick little upgrade. It took me probably around about 20 minutes to swap everything around. You'll see the finished products here all installed this was a very easy thing to do. There's 2 screws basically for each brace. One is here for your for the rear of the brace, where it's kind of going across your wing mount, and then of course there is another one underneath, which is this guy right there. There's another one on the other side which is for the front brace, and over the top you'll see that there's a screw right there where the plate is. So there's 2 screws you got to remove, swap the braces around, and away you go, you just bolt them straight back on. I do advise, however, that you use a little bit of Loctite, because you're putting screws metal onto metal now, so as opposed to plastic. So yeah, probably put a little bit of Loctite on there, just blue Loctite, just so that the screws don't back out. You should be fine. The servo mount, as you can see, very nice, snug fit, very well designed as well, real beefy, very strong. There were 4 screws for the servo mount underneath, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4. You remove those, and then of course you got to remove the 4 that hold the servo in place, and you also need to remove your servo horn. Now, the way that I replaced my servo mount, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. Probably the most obvious way is to unplug the actual servo from the receiver box, which is all the way on the back there. But in this case, the wires for the actual servo itself are kind of routed underneath the ESC and everything else. So it's a little bit tricky to kind of have to pull more parts off in order to get the servo to come out, because once you kind of unplug it and unscrew the servo from the servo mount, it'll just slide clean off from the top. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to leave the servo attached to the truck and still plugged into my receiver, and slide the actual mount off. Now, there is a way that you can do this with the plastic mount. It's actually quite easy. All you need to do is kind of feed the servo kind of with the pinion first. You slide it in under there, and hey presto, you're able to remove the mount very, very easily. However, with the aluminium one, it's a little bit chunkier around here, and I can't get my pinion to sort of go in, and it doesn't give me the room that I need to be able to have to kind of fit the servo on the bottom here. So what I ended up doing with the aluminium one is I removed this bottom cover of my steering servo, and that allowed me to feed the servo through and get it all to sort of fit in, you know, and mount it all up without having to remove the servo from the truck itself. However, there is a rubber seal underneath here on this joint, so make sure you put that rubber seal back on, otherwise your servo is no longer going to be waterproof. But that, you know, aside from that sort of little snag that I kind of encountered as I was swapping this around, there was really no other issues with these fittings. Everything bolted on as would the factory fittings. I didn't have to manipulate any parts to kind of line up on the holes or do anything like that. It was a pretty much straightforward swap, very, very easy to do. Now, as I said, the chassis braces are 70-75 aluminium, so real tough aluminium, and the servo mount is actually 60-61 aluminium, so a slightly different grade, but it's not going to be under the same stress as these chassis braces, so I can understand why you know, they've gone for slightly different grade aluminium there. And as I said, everything's CNC machined, very nicely finished. And I have to say, I'm very excited about having these parts on the Kraton because I know that from the testimonials that I've seen on the ARRMA Facebook page of people just praising these parts and just you know, giving feedback on how much stiffer the chassis is and how they don't have flex in the servo mount anymore, and they can have really precise steering as well. So I'm really looking forward to testing this out and seeing it for myself, and you know, hopefully giving you guys some feedback down the line as well. That is it for this episode of RC Pit Stop. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. I always appreciate new subscribers, and I thank you all for your support. And of course, don't forget to check out the video description for more information on these GKA parts. If you have any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comment section down below, and I will speak to you guys next time.